Hey everybody, my name is Brendan Noble and I'm a young adult author. Welcome back to my Slavic Saturday series where we talk about Slavic mythology and folklore related to my Slavic fantasy series and the first book in the series named A Dagger in the Winds. This week on the series we're talking about some demons that are specifically related to plagues, which is kind of depressioningly related to the world as we know it today. But there's a few different ones here. There's not a ton written about a lot of them, so I'm going to lump four of them together. So we're going to be talking about the Chuma or Kuga, the Nezit, the Likhoradka, and the Murrain Maiden. Some of these you may have not heard of. They come from different regions within Slavic mythology, so we're going to talk about ones from all over the place here. But before I jump into that, I'm still looking for beta readers and early reviewers for the first book in my Slavic fantasy series, A Dagger in the Winds. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click the links down in the comments below. So as I start off here with the Chuma or the Kuga, which is a South Slavic and East Slavic demon / goddess. It's kind of important to mention that in this early Slavic period we're talking about here, people didn't really understand diseases or medicine. The things they did, they just hoped were spiritual things. Sometimes their herbs or different remedies worked, but a lot of these beliefs were just they didn't understand the world around them, so they smacked a spirit on it to try to understand things. And the Chuma is one example of that. The Chuma specifically is a personification of the plague or other diseases. She was thought to be the goddess and the daughter of Veles, who we talked about last week, who is the god of the underworld. That story is a little debatable, but regardless, the Chuma is pictured as a very pale woman with long white hair and a long white dress. She's often considered not so negative. She's thought to be bringing a more peaceful death than sometimes a violent one. And that means you get to go to the underworld, which was considered a good afterlife, instead of becoming a demon, which was a bad afterlife. So she carried with her a pair of scissors and a birch staff. The scissors were meant to cut the string of life attached to the person. And this birch staff was, once the person died, she gave them the staff as a walking stick to help them on their way as they traveled to the underworld of Nevia. And this kind of, again, shows her as the goddess of death and disease. She's almost considered, has positive elements to it, which again shows some of these nuances in Slavic myth where something might not necessarily be good or evil just because of its label. To try to avoid the plague coming, though, some people would try to do different things to prevent the disease from running rampant. One of those things, it was thought that having a dirty house was bad and it would bring the Chuma. So they would clean their house, which would actually help the disease, as we prevent diseases, cleaning and preventing the germs and bacteria. They didn't know that then, they just thought it prevented the spirit from coming, but that was an actually effective thing. They would also do less effective things, such as offerings of food, water, basil flowers, and even a comb. So our next creature is called the Nezit, and this is from typically Russian or just in general Eastern Slavic folklore. And this one's a little interesting because the Nezit can have a few different meanings. We're talking about the one where it's a specific demon. The Nezit can be a category of demons overall, but we're talking about the specific demon that brings disease just by its mere presence. And so the Nezit was often pictured as like a zombie-ish like creature. It had decaying skin, almost the bone beneath the skin was showing. It's just being around people or touching someone could bring diseases, but also make their teeth fall out, make them go deaf, or even make them go blind. So its mere presence can do a lot of dangerous things to people, and on top of its zombie-like presence, it's a creature to avoid just by mere creepiness alone. And interestingly enough, this creature does make an appearance in A Dagger in the Winds. I'm not going to reveal too much, but he is an omen of what is to come later in the story, and Václav, one of our main characters, has to deal with what that omen means. Next, we have the Likhoradka, which was a Eastern Slavic one again. This one often is even more Russian, and this one often gets attached to the Chuma often. It is a demon that, or spirit, it's sometimes hard to differentiate the two, that would possess someone's body and bring a disease into them. Often she was considered a servant of Chernobog, who is a very, very debatable god, whether he existed or not. That doesn't really matter right now, because regardless, the Likhoradka was thought to bring these diseases. It's thought to be connected to Chuma because it's thought to look almost exactly like Chuma. And in later stories, particularly, the Likhoradka was thought to have 12 of them as a personification of multiple different, especially dangerous diseases that could possess someone's body and kill them. So the last creature we're going to talk about is the Murrain Maiden, or the Plague Maiden, and this one comes from Western Slavic or Norse mythology, which is kind of an interesting overlap between the two. So the Murrain Maiden was pictured very similarly to the Chuma or the Likhoradka, except the fact that she was crawling with maggots, her skin was thought to be decaying, and her mere presence, kind of similar to the Nezit, but just a female versus male form, is incredibly creepy. Her presence in a village was thought that the entire village might die. Her element of the plague was that potent. And especially because her presence often comes from later folklore, this can relate to still a lot of these ideas where villages or cities were more compact, so there were people closer together, so diseases could really run rampant because they still didn't have medicine yet. In Lukian Simiensky's tale of the Plague Maiden, which was actually based in Lithuania but has a lot of the connections here, he talks about how the mere presence of the Murrain Maiden or Plague Maiden was thought that everyone already knew they were going to die. They started saying goodbye to their loved ones just because she could wave a red handkerchief and the person would die of a disease. So again, this is an incredibly creepy creature. It also appears in popular culture in the Witcher series video games, specifically The Witcher 3, when there's a side quest where you have to deal with the Plague Maiden who has infected a area, and Geralt, as often, has to save the day and decide whether to help the demon and send them along or kill them. So that's all I have for you guys this week on this Slavic Saturday series. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please remember to like and subscribe down below. I come out with these videos every Saturday. Always as well, if you're interested in helping out with the series, go ahead and click the links below. And as well, if you have any ideas for videos or things that you would like to hear about, go ahead and shoot me a message. I have a thank you to Gabriella, one of my followers, who suggested the idea for this video with the Chuma. So if you have your own ideas, you might get your own video as well about that. So go ahead and reach out to me. I'm always looking for new ones. Until then, I'll see you guys next week.